Hi everyone, today we're back on Context Matters. We're going to be talking about youth crime in Victoria and Melbourne. We're going to be, seeing if it's getting worse or if it's getting blown out by the media. Today we've got Giacomo.
Yo, what up?
And we've got Riley.
Hello.
Speaking on this topic. So, Giacomo, what do you think? You don't think that it's...
I'm on the side of the fence where I don't think that it's as bad as it actually is. I think it gets over-dramatized by the media.
Yeah, and Riley, what do you think?
I personally believe that nothing's being over-dramatised.
Yeah?
I think that any kind of statistics that are being shown in recent times can support that.
Yeah, that's a big point. Do you want to get into it now?
I think I do, yes.
Alright, let's go. Any statistics?
So the statistics don't lie, and if I wanted to read out just a few, the 10 to 13-year-olds, which we both know it's very young.
Yeah, that is very young.
You're kids, 10 years old, think about that.
Yeah.
Like 22.5% in 1 year is what the violent crime rate went up for them. Sorry,
that's a huge jump.
That's
That's massive.
It's
10 to 13.
10 to 13 years
What
old.
were you doing at 10 to 10?
I was
playing Minecraft.
I was playing on my Wii.
which is what you should be doing at that age.
I know, you shouldn't be stabbing people.
And this is stabbing people, burglaries, even murders in the worst cases. But to be honest, yes, the media does quite frankly go into it and give it a lot of significance, but that's the significance it deserves.
Yeah.
And they'll only really cover it when something bad happens.
Yeah.
They're not going to cover it for no reason.
That is very true.
I feel you on that, but as a counter argument, see, you're delving into the specifics here, but obviously youth crime is a range. Youth as a word it describes a range of people, and you're just looking at very specific numbers. But if we actually look at the total number of youth crime, youth offenders, it's gone down by 3%.
I understand that, but also if you're saying I'm restricting just to 10 to 13-year-olds, I can also give you 14 to 17-year-olds because their violent crime rate is the highest rate it's been since 2009.
Wow.
See, again, but we're just going back to the same point where if you look at it as a whole, from ranging to range, it's gone down.
So would you say...
I'm saying that, yes, there's more severe crimes, but the actual total crime rate has gone down.
So you'd be saying it's getting better, would you?
Yeah, I'm saying it's getting better. Yeah, 100%, bro.
You don't agree with that, do you, Riley?
Well, it's not that I don't agree. It's more so that the statistics don't agree. I've covered majority of teenage youth. I've covered from 10 to 17 years old. There's only apart from that, you're an adult.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah, that is true. But again, statistics also state it's gone down by 3%. When you look at it from the broader perspective.
Total crimes may have gone down, but the nature and the violence of the crimes have increased dramatically. And I think that's not worth doing, because there's a difference between shoplifting like a lolly with your mates and running to a house with a knife.
Well, I do agree the severity of the crimes have risen. The actual rate of those crimes has dramatically dropped.
So we'll be saying that the kids nowadays, they've grown up and
they've kind of it's a kind of a developmental thing.
So they've changed from graffitiing, shoplifting, all this to aggravated
assault, all this, but at a lesser rate than something like graffiti and all that stuff.
Yeah, well, I will say, so the question always rises, is it worse than before? And to that I say 100%, because as you guys said, in the early 2000s, youth crime was just about graffiti, shoplifting, school fights, all that stuff, but your organised groups now of teens, they call themselves gangs, they represent postcodes, all things like that. They plan robberies, steal cars, and they post on social media bragging about it. Yeah. And it's just a different one.
You want to get into that? What are these gangs? What do they do?
Well,
can you list any, or is it
I could list a few, but I don't think that would help anything.
No, I don't think it would.
Because I don't think it would be fair to point out any specific one as being worse than the other.
Yeah.
But the broad idea of them is it's a pack mentality of we're gonna be dangerous. We're gonna make money together.
Okay.
We don't care about the law. And
in
theory, it doesn't sound as bad as the reality is, because in reality, it ends up with them genuinely taking lives. I'm sure, as I personally want to feel safe in my own home. I'm sure you guys do as well.
Yeah.
And if you have not just teens, but they're working with grown-ups as well, running through houses, destroying everything, taking everything you've worked so hard for.
Yeah.
And I'd much rather have someone just graffiti my house and maybe break a window than do that.
What do you think about that, Giacomo?
Yeah, well, I understand where you're coming from, but you also got to take into perspective where for nowadays, for every one crime that has happened today, 10 years ago, 10 would have happened. But the severity of that is different. 10 years ago, you would have had 10 people graffiti your house at 10 different times. Today, you've had one person rob your house once. And that's what you got to understand. What are you willing to give up more? Are you willing to have one robbery once or 10 graffitis 10 times?
I believe that we shouldn't have to pick either, and I think that's where it raises the question, like, what can we really do to stop it altogether? And I believe that, like, you can sit there and say, oh, youth crime is bad all you want, but like you can't just. These are kids.
We need solutions for it.
Absolutely, we do. So I believe the thing is, like,
and you agree with that point as well.
I agree that, like, we need to actually, like, negate the problem entirely, rather than argue about if it's bad or not.
Yeah,
I do believe that a lot of like people that fall into youth crime have either been unsuccessful or lack of opportunities with sport or music or anything like that. So if you make it in like lower income areas, for example, like Broadmeadows or St Albans or something,
you're saying give more to the people.
Give more to, like, some place like that. You got to, like, make a new basketball team.
Yeah.
Make some new music centres. Like, get some new community centres. Better programs at schools there.
Are you saying, like, fund those
more money,
specific endangered areas more severely?
Yeah.
Yeah.
You could say.
So that's good. So we can be able to, like, get them on the right path. Because if you tell a kid, yeah, you could actually make something of yourself in this sport. Imagine how much more, what's it called? Like, just better that would be for them, and how much better it would sound to them than saying you could die in a gang warfare. If that makes sense.
Yeah. 100%. I do agree with that. So so what you're saying is we should push for stronger laws as well.
I do believe that stronger laws are something that we need.
Yeah.
I think if you do an adult crime, you should do adult time.
Oh, that's a good point, Riley.
Because I've seen stories of people taking people's lives with a knife, and only getting like 1 year or even one. Like,
I actually that's a good point you make. I know someone who knows someone who knows someone.
Yeah.
And that's exactly what happened. He unfortunately, this kid grew up loving family, refugee, and came from the Cook Islands, and his family loved him, of course, but he had a lot of family problems. Grew up with a lot of siblings who were already developed into that gang culture, as you would like to say, and as soon as you get in, you can't leave.
Yeah.
And got worse and worse.
It's a trap,
He unfortunately did stab someone.
Yeah.
And like what you said, adult crimes, adult times. He only got 6 months, and then he was out again on the streets. And unfortunately, he did it again.
Well, that's the thing. It's not even just like broken homes. You can have a lot of higher crimes, like, a lot of high gang-related crimes can actually bring money to the homes. But the problem is, it now becomes a job. There's too much money in this sort of business that we need to, like, fix up. We need to try and point people towards another way, which could maybe increase wages and all this stuff. Because people, they turn to crime for the money aspect. 100%. They turn to crime for the money because it just garners more money easier.
Yeah.
I would like to raise a question though. Do you think that if, let's say, we had the most harsh laws possible, and if you were found committing any of these crimes, you're put to death, for example? And obviously, I don't suggest we start doing that. But do you think people would really be doing that as much?
Look, I think it would create a stronger opposition towards the government itself, which would then cause people to retaliate more against the government, which, as we know, the only way to retaliate against the government is to necessarily go against it, which is by breaking the laws that they create. So if you entail making stricter laws causes harsher crimes to happen. People are going to try and speak out more.
That's what I was going to add as well. How is that going to affect the government if they bring in a new law with the death penalty?
Yeah.
What's then people going to think of this country? Is that going to help this country?
No.
At all.
However, I would like to bring up El Salvador.
Yeah.
They didn't do death penalty, but to be honest with you, better than what they do to them. Because they had one of the biggest gang problems. Obviously, our gang problem isn't even remotely close to anything that they have to go.
Yeah.
but they decided to put them in really harsh prison conditions, every single one, with no chance of getting out, and it's made the country a lot more reputable, and they were the murder capital of the world, and now they're not even close. They're a very they're almost considered a safe country.
I saw that.
I did see that, but you do also understand that it's now no longer about reformation.
No.
Prisons were about reformation. These are still people, no matter how badly they commit a crime and all this stuff. What prisons were for was to help reform those people, to stop them from doing the crimes and come back into society. What El Salvador has done is taken these people and basically shunned them from society, said no matter what, you're not allowed to reform, you're not allowed to forgive and forget.
But you can ask the question of,
it's dystopian, really.
Can you bring these people back into society? Can you trust them?
It comes from a sense of your own faith in humanity.
Yeah.
Can you 100% see someone who's done something wrong? Say someone's murdered someone. Can you 100% say that if they, in their heart, have forgiven 100%, can you forgive them?
Well,
if they can be sorry for their actions 100% of the time, can you forgive them?
Can you forgive them?
Can you take that sorry?
It's a good question, Giacomo. It's a good question.
Well, I truly believe that you can, and that's why there's the whole adult crimes, adult times thing. A lot of kids don't get adult time because you just don't they just don't understand.
They don't, but
because it's all they've grown up with. I may understand at 15 that murder's bad. That's because I came from a home that understood that murder's bad.
I understand that. I don't want to be too unsympathetic for their personal circumstances, but the consequence, you're a kid, you're an adult, the consequences of what you do are as real as either way. You kill someone, they're dead if you're an adult or a kid.
100%. But the thing is, as a kid, I don't understand that. You and me and everyone around us might understand that, but for someone that's actually done that and grown up in that time, do they understand it? No.
They would understand it to some extent.
But that's the thing, bro. To some extent, because you got like we said before, like Alex said, homes and families where they grow up in that environment, you just don't get it. You
could be saying that this is what I've heard as well. That the prison and the prison time that they get sometimes is better than what is happening at home.
Yeah, exactly.
And they would rather be in juvie, jail, whatever.
Detention centres anywhere,
rather than they would be at home.
Because a lot of youth crimes start out from the home, start out from the parents.
So that you could be saying that they're less. They don't have that fear of jail anymore.
Yeah, it's the lack of authority in their lives because of how broken the homes are. They don't understand authority, so they just kind of negate it, and that's why you see them retaliate with police and all this stuff.
Yeah,
yes.
Okay.
Well, that is true. However, you've got to think of those who are uninvolved in any way with this stuff, that aren't...
When you say uninvolved, what do you mean by that?
I believe, they haven't personally faced this problem, and the people that they don't know them, they've never met them, and then they could get caught up in the wrong place, wrong time, and the result of their own personal problems have spilled out into people that are innocent and have nothing to do with it, and they've lost their life. They've been severely... They've lost... it.
So you're talking about someone's been... a victim of this crime.
A victim, and
you're saying that the victim should be able to see the revenge.
I think not revenge. I think justice in that case. Because if I had personally, if I had found that my mother had been murdered by some youth person who has, I don't care where his home first. I don't think if someone killed your mum, I don't think and you got 6 months because they had a bad home, I don't think you'd be satisfied with that.
I think that's coming from a lack of empathy. Really.
How could you have empathy in such a severe case? Because this is
because it is again a youth.
Yes,
it could be as young as 13. His dad, he grew up seeing his dad beat the shit out of his mum, and he's now been groomed basically since he was a child to not treat women like that. And then so he's in an act that he doesn't understand, and maybe we don't know why he could have done that. He is again a youth. Most of the time, it's not actual forethought or anything. It's someone telling you to do something. So what if his dad's told him to do something, and he doesn't understand? would you still forgive him?
Absolutely. You can give me all the reasons, you can give me everything, but at the end of the day, I'm going to have to go home to a house without a mother. And that's I would definitely want to feel.
So you're saying that the youth gangs are a growing problem?
So you're saying that, the severity of that is a growing problem, and that's why you want to put harsher punishments.
The biggest argument against it is definitely the media hype, but you got to understand, the news won't cover youth crime as a whole. The news covers youth crime when a big incident happens.
Yeah.
That is true.
It is true, but then what I'm talking about is that it gets dragged out. What happens is that as the media puts more attention on it, what can happen is that people see this, and especially those kids that were at that edge of youth crime, that just needed that little push, them seeing the media drag this out, put names in the media, see people that are like starting to get popular, famous, like notable for this stuff, they get pushed over the edge for it. And it's because of the amount of media attention that gets brought on this topic.
So, are you saying that these youths, they have influencers?
Yeah, exactly.
And they see
They see it on the TV, their parents see it, everyone sees it, it's everywhere.
So you're saying that we should stop covering it at all?
Not necessarily, but it shouldn't be covered to the dramatifications and the point and extent that it is covered to. Because I feel like it comes to a point where it's glorified.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
Okay.
People see it and they think it's cool. They think that, I should do that as well.
Yeah.
It's because they see it so much.
So they want to get into that life now.
Yeah, exactly, because they see it so much. It gets so much coverage. They want that coverage on themselves.
What do you think about that, Riley?
I do believe the media can negatively affect the issue itself, but I think the morals and the values that the media portrays of because overall they think it's a big problem and they think that there needs to be something done about it. I wouldn't necessarily say that that's incorrect.
But it's not necessarily I guess you could say, points that the media is making, but more so just the objective view that they're covering this. Most kids don't pay attention to the words, but to the visuals.
Yeah.
They're seeing, but they're not hearing. They're not listening.
Exactly. What about, for example, those from not lower income areas, but are involved with lower income areas?
When you say involved, but not from, what do you mean by that?
They go and do the violent crimes with them, because that's actually not exactly uncommon.
For example, someone from a well-off area, Essendon, goes to a not so well-off area, Broady, or something like that.
Yeah.
And you're saying that they would then in turn get involved in those crimes.
It's definitely happened a lot, and it's definitely.
And I would say that is largely a media influence.
A media influence, but would you say that person who has everything that they could need and doesn't have to do anything, they just maybe got there from circumstance and then gets in trouble for a serious crime that they may have been involved in, they may have been pressured into by these kids from low income areas. What do you think the punishment should be then for them, if they're a youth?
Well, from your points, you said adult crimes, adult times. So you're saying that person from those high income areas that was at the wrong place, wrong time, should get adult punishments. You're saying that. And
I've heard a story about that.
Yeah.
I knew this once a great kid, right? Named Sean Minclair.
Yeah.
And he was such a great kid. Grew up in Ascot Vale, right? A nice area.
It's a decent area.
A 3-story house in Ascot Vale, this kid.
Yeah. He has money.
And unfortunately, he moved then onto Broadmeadows. He had to move because of his family.
Yeah.
They moved to Broadmeadows, and he started meeting these people. And unfortunately, he did exactly what you're saying now.
Yeah.
He's trying, and I'm not going to say he joined the gang.
Yeah, but he's associated.
But he started to make friends with him. He's bettered himself now.
Yeah.
But that was a scary period for him.
There was a low life.
Yeah.
There was a low point in his life. Yeah. I understand that. But I think what I'm saying is that we should look at this from a point of empathy. And for everyone involved, because again, youth crimes is such a nuanced subject. In the point of there's so many factors that we just don't know, especially when it involves child psychology and the history, nature versus nurture sort of thing, where they're always supposed to be like this. That's where I guess the whole point of someone that comes from a well-off area goes to a not so well-off area to do this stuff. It gets into the point of nurture, like, you know, it gets to a point.
Okay, I'd like to raise a question with maybe everyone else.
Yeah, of course.
Do you think that the justice system is too soft?
What do you think, Giacomo?
Gents, can we take this seriously? This is a serious topic, right?
Yeah.
Okay, I appreciate it if you would. Anyway, I hope that we can maintain a mature environment.
Yeah, so we took a break, and now we're back. Let's get back into it.
Of course. I'd like to raise my original question that before I was interrupted. Let me just quickly.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, you've got to notes.
Has youth crime as a problem? Like, do you think the justice system for the youth crime is too soft?
What do you think, Giacomo?
Well, I think it gets to a point. I think what the justice system needs to do is involve other matters other than just the crime.
Yeah.
Because, of course, the fact that a 13-year-old and a 16-year-old are able to get the same amount of punishment for the same crime is, to me, completely barbaric. Yeah. I think that a 16-year-old is going to be a lot more conscientious and mature and aware of their crimes than a 13-year-old.
Riley, I would agree with your point that the justice system is too soft.
You would?
I would. You know, in 2024, a 13-year-old was arrested 4 times in 1 month. He just kept reoffending because there was no real punishment for him.
Yes, I understand that there's different reasons, family issues, school exclusion, poverty. But there are also people that have been in those circumstances that have made wonderful things of themselves.
Yeah.
I think that, although I do think that is a severe circumstance where they treated it unfairly, in the sense of it shouldn't have been a punishment for a 13-year-old that it was a reoffender.
Yeah.
Because there is a clear issue there that is not crime related. It's a clear psychological, familial issue that should have been brought up by the government as a way of like therapy, you know, taking them away from their homes, understanding what's happening at their homes. I feel like punishment should have been delved onto the parents and his guardians and authoritative figures rather than the actual child itself. So I think that was perfect. I don't think they should have punished the child.
Are you saying if that a family who was who migrated into Australia,
say like from like Somalia or something,
Somalia, Sudanese, Islander, Lebanese, whatever, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Do you believe that the whole family should be deported back? Because that is what some people nowadays are saying.
He asked me, so please.
Apologies.
I've actually had a conversation with this with a good friend that was a youth crimer.
Yeah.
Potra Seb.
Yeah.
He, we talked about this, and no, I don't think that it should be the whole family per se, rather that it should be just the child. The child has done the crime. He clearly has not, I'd like to say, assimilated with the culture. And, you know, that's not something that this country necessarily needs more of. I think that parents should be investigated as well. Not necessarily deported, because, again, other factors.
Yeah, yes. 100%.
But I feel like parents should be investigated, child should be deported.
Well, what do you think about that, Riley?
Well, you know, so on the topic of immigration, because not to say that they're inherently violent or crime committers, because that would be a terrible thing to say, but you know, a lot of the countries that are lower income in Africa and things like that, the crime, like they're a lot more violent in nature. The countries are. That's why they leave, because they come to Australia. But they don't realise that a first world country compared to the country they came from, the laws and the regulations and the rules for everything are as strict, and I think that they can bring habits from where they were.
So are you saying deport the whole family?
I believe that we shouldn't deport them. I think we should give them a chance for rehabilitation. But if they want to come to live with us, there's nothing wrong with it. They can live with us like fine, but they need to live like an Australian. They can't and that's not to say that they can't have their culture. Obviously, I think their culture, any culture is beautiful, but I think the reason they left was because it's not good. South Sudan, you know, you're forced to be a child soldier. Like And so obviously the rules and regulations of a country like that would be probably next to nothing. And when you come to Australia where, you can't do a lot of things, and, they need to be able to adjust and live like an Australian to be in Australia. And I think the way to do that is mentorship for the whole family, but more particularly the youth, because I think the adults come here and they're just grateful. And they're
like you said before, the programs that can help them and support them into
your whole
new chapter of their life.
Point is that funding and money should be put into these areas. Yeah.
But if I think there's a point. I think we continue to try to rehabilitate them. If they continue to break the law in severe ways and more or less don't live like an Australian, I don't think there's a place in Australia for them.
Okay.
And I think that goes for everyone.
I like to agree with that. I think that necessarily depending on the severity of the crime, there should be say someone comes to Australia and they murder someone. Yeah. I feel like that should be an immediate deportation.
But I believe we should do more. I believe we should do more to prevent that to start with, because one less person dead is always a win. And because
you can't necessarily prevent it if you give them these adult crimes, adult time sort of things, because then it just you see this sort of beehive, like hive mind effect, where one person gets done in badly, and people tend to avenge their friend or like a gang leader or something like that. They will tend to avenge them if they do get a severe punishment, and that causes a domino effect,
a ripple effect.
A ripple effect. Exactly.
One person dies, the other gang gets back.
Yeah, exactly.
And keeps going, keeps going.
That's why I'm all in for.
That's the question I have to ask: when is it going to stop?
The truth is,
we don't know.
Yeah,
we don't know. It is ingrained in our culture now.
Yeah,
to the point that
is this what other people think of Australia?
I don't believe
because
so.
When you look at what you think about the youths in America and the UK, you think of gangs nowadays.
Yeah.
You think in the UK how everyone's carrying machetes
by
now.
the media. That's been brought on by the media. The media has exacerbated that to the point that we think.
But that's because that's what it's like.
But that's exactly what's happening with Australia now.
So you don't think that it is like that in Australia?
I feel like it is going to that point, and the media is causing it to tip over.
Yeah.
Like how it has in America, where the media has done super massive coverage of it, to the point that everyone outside of America thinks about youth crime as gangs, as guns, stabbings, all that stuff. Same with the UK.
It's I do believe compared to the United States and the United Kingdom, we are definitely a step ahead. And the statistics do show that.
Are we a step ahead because we're behind?
Behind in the rates, absolutely, yes.
No, as in behind in history sense. We're a young country.
I understand
most of our stuff is behind them. So is it actually through a perspective sort of sense? Right now, we might think that we're ahead, but in actuality, we're just behind them. We're going into what they are right now.
I understand that, but for the things of the nature of this, I doubt that how old we are as a country will come into much of because America is usually the standard for culture compared to a lot of things. Like you know, they have.
When you say that, what do you mean?
Pretty much everything we watch, movie, anything like that.
Oh, like Hollywood all this stuff.
Like
yeah,
that.
The media.
It comes from America. You know, it's like all of the YouTubers that the kids watch. They're
But is that because of the ingrained history of America that Australia doesn't have?
I think
our culture is not developed enough like America and
in a sense, but I think it's due to the fact that America is just a very big and powerful country. They're very influential. They're probably one of the most influential countries in the whole world.
Mm-hmm.
And when they influence, that's why so much media and so much things like that comes from them.
So are you saying that American media is influencing the gang crimes in Australia? Are you saying that gangs want to
be like what it is in Australia?
Well, then that comes. You've just agreed with my original argument, where the media exacerbates.
No, but that's not even the media. That's also things like I think one of the bigger problems is how many famous rappers come out of Australia. Maybe one group from Sydney, but if you look at how many, that's what I was talking about. Yeah, but I'm talking about how many from UK and America? Like a million. And what are they talking
drill
about?
And all that
Drill,
stuff.
drill, rap, all that stuff.
But that's media that exacerbates the glorification and idealization of
the gang
violence. Yeah, the media through rappers like King Von and all this stuff. Yeah, it glorifies
the O Block gang.
Yeah, O Block and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. You want to do like a fairy tale in the Bronx? That was a whole movie about gang violence.
Yeah. So look, guys, we've ran out of time.
Yeah.
We've had amazing points.
Yeah.
And yeah.
As the median man, throughout this whole episode, where would you like to stand right now?
Look, you both raised amazing points.
Yeah.
I don't think that I personally think, look, that it is a problem.
Yeah.
The media might be portraying it as something bigger than it is.
Yes.
But look, I think that we should just stop. I think we should just cut out the violence.
Yeah.
Because we're all, at the end of the
towards
day,
the same goal.
Work together. Make your money together.
Yeah.
I think that's what we should do.
All right. Lovely. Thanks for having us.
Fair with that.
No worries.
Yeah, thank you so much, bro.
Have a good day.
Have a good day.